Scary. Frightening. Morbid. If you belong to the majority of people, these might be a few key words which you would use to describe cemeteries and the monuments which reside in them. Yet oftentimes, there is a whole other side of cemeteries that is overlooked, and one word which people seem to neglect to mention: art. The definition for cemetery describes it as a graveyard, or a place for burying the dead. Yet cemeteries are so much more than what their definition puts them down as. What many people don't realize is that not only are cemeteries home to some very striking monuments and architectural designs, but in some cases they are even created to be a place for the living as well as the dead. The concept of making a cemetery like a park goes back to Queen Victoria's England. For this reason, cemeteries that are spacious, green, covered with different forms of plants and wildlife, and in many ways resemble a park, are known as Victorian cemeteries. Perhaps the most striking feature of Mount Carmel Cemetery is the Bishop's Mausoleum. It was constructed between 1905 and 1912, and it sits alone atop a small hill at the very center of the cemetery. Above its doors is the inscription Resurrectus, which means, "For those who will rise again." Standing guard atop its roof is a statue of the Archangel Gabriel, who sounds his trumpet as if in triumph. Women depicted as clinging to crucifixes like this one are usually found with the verse of a poem, "Simply to the cross I cling." The sculpture itself, along with the verse of poetry, is a representation of that person's faith, for the poem represents a person or a soul who is lost in the sea of sin and whose only hope is to cling to the crucifix and pray for salvation. This beautiful marble sculpture depicts the members of an entire family. Each one of them stands and surrounds their mother lovingly. The ivy which stretches itself on the railing before them is a representation of friendship. The family was obviously a very closely knit one. The most common motif of graveyard statuary is that of the angel. Perhaps this is because throughout history, angels have been depicted as the guides to heaven. Supposedly, they are the ones who help those who have passed on to journey from this life to the next. With their outspread wings and graceful expressions, they are also some of the most beautiful of monuments. The symbol of a flame or a torch, when pointed right side up like this one, is used to represent eternity. When the torch is depicted as being upside down, however, it goes to represent the end of life. The symbols which adorn this Celtic cross are known as Alpha and Omega. Respectively, they are the first and last letters of the Greek alphabet, and when they are intertwined together, they symbolize a beginning and an end. Sometimes people miss it, but cemeteries weren't designed merely to be frightening or depressing places. They're more like museums, except you don't have to pay to get in. There aren't vast crowds of people. Instead of being in a room, the art is outdoors. And yes, there's a few more dead people. But still, every grave has a story in it, even if you don't know what that story is, because each monument, whether small or large, was set into the earth to represent a person, someone who lived and breathed and experienced, and yes, died. When you look at them the right way, and see them for what they truly are, that is when you will discover the true beauty that cemeteries possess.